morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Ritual of Planning a Curator's Panel webinar. My name is Lonnie Swain. I'm a media personality and creative entrepreneur. I'm going to be one of your hosts. And also joining me is Cecily. Cecily, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Cecily Langford. I am a workforce development and operations manager with Equiticity, and it's a pleasure that I am co-hosting with you, Lonnie, today, and our wonderful panel is ready to go as well, and we are thrilled to all be together.
Yes, this is going to be an awesome conversation today, part 2 in a series of 5 webinars. Today we're going to be talking about the ritual of planning, all of the planning that goes into CMRs, aka community mobility rituals. So there's things like marketing, routes, stops, storytelling, the advocacy platform, which is getting people to actively support the progression of your organization's work and mission. So there's a lot that goes into it. And we're going to be talking to some awesome panelists who have firsthand experience at all of the planning. And so they're going to give us some insight into what goes into that. Also, we have American Sign Language interpretation being provided by the Renaissance One group today. So make sure if you need some sign language interpretation services that you have your settings set to gallery so that you can see them at all times.
Awesome. Yeah. So today it's kind of like we're pulling back the curtain a little bit on what is a community mobility ritual. And we're like really digging into what it means to fully plan and execute such a beautiful and important thing in our mobility lives. So we wanted to just share a little bit about, defining what we are calling this community mobility rituals. Most people have familiarity, but we wanted to share our Equiticity ingredients, special ingredients, we will say. So we know for Equiticity that in addition to public transit excursions that we do, as well as our group scooter rolls and the Ciclovia style open street festivals, CMRs really are a mainstay of what we're doing. And what are they? Well, they have several important key elements in common. First of all, they are scheduled with a rhythmic frequency. They happen with regularity that we can predict. They prioritize being social and connecting to other people. They have a tight focus on racialized healing, important needed ingredient of our CMRs. We really seek to reduce barriers to participation. So that could look a variety of ways, and we're going to hear more how that looks from our panelists today. Natural development of shared customs. We know that developing this together is an important part where we engage and interrelate and interact with one another in a shared way that becomes normalized and codified. We want to actively disrupt the status quo together in our rides as we take back the street and name it for ourselves and claim it for our ritual. We also, lastly, will say that, this is a hyper local collective ownership of our space, we who, are living in communities, we who own and occupy the communities. It is our ownership that is forward in our mobility rituals as we execute them. And so starting with that, I think we can segue into a really cool video that Obai is going to go ahead and play for us to kick us off.
Yes.
There we go.
Love, love, love that video. So that's like a sneak peek at a CMR, community mobility ritual in full effect. So we're going to be learning about how to plan these community mobility rituals. So let's get into our panelists today, starting with Najari Smith of Rich City Rides, Richmond, California. Najari, if you could tell us a bit about your position, your title, your organization, the city that you work in, and what you do in this work.
Sure. My name is Najari Smith. I'm the founding executive director of Rich City Rides. We are going to be celebrating our 10th year this upcoming August. I ran for city council about 2 years ago. I'm a former chair of the Richmond Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I've also served as the Arts Commissioner for the city of Richmond. And I'm currently on a human rights commissioner with the city of Richmond. And what brings me to the work is my love for community and just understanding how healing social activity can be.
Thank you so much. We will hear from now Jalonda, who is the lead of Colored Girls Bike 2 from Buffalo, New York.
Peace, everyone. Excuse the background. So I am the president and founder of Colored Girls Bike 2. We are based out of Buffalo, New York. What brings me to the work is my own personal healing, healing my community and bringing justice to my community and just the overall aspect of community building and connecting with folks on the ground by way of bicycle. So I'm really happy to be here.
Happy to have you, Jalonda. Now we're going to take it over to Elgin, Sandra Davila. If you could introduce yourself and tell us about the work that you do.
Good morning. I'm Sandra Davila. I'm connecting from Elgin, Illinois, but I'm originally from Aguascalientes, Mexico. And I'm working, I volunteer, and I'm a board member with Elgin Community Bikes. Elgin is a city of about 110,000 plus people. I'm a human relations commissioner for the city. I'm an educator. I teach reading for little ones, kindergarten through 6th grade. And I'm here among a lot of other things, but I'm here because I find also healing in the collective and love for my community and mobility justice. Justice is love, and it translates to bicycles in a lovely way.
Oh, and I love that. Thank you. Moving towards Refa 1, hearing from you from Oakland, lead in Red Bike and Green.
Morning, I'm Refa 1. I am the president of the local chapter of Red Bike and Green here in Oakland, California. And our organization is celebrating its 15th anniversary right now, this month. What brings me to this work is health and wellness and being a part of creating safe Black spaces for our community and people. I've been working in social justice and activist communities and organizations for at least 30 years. I am a practicing visual artist and an instructor, and I work here in the Oakland, California Bay Area and all over the nation and as far away as West Africa, teaching art in cities like Dakar, Senegal.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for being here with us this morning / afternoon, depending on where you're checking in from. We're excited to get into the conversation. For everyone that is attending this webinar, just know that we will get to a Q&A section. So hold your questions or you can drop them in the Q&A box. But first, we're going to hear from our panelists, starting off with Najari. What is your current planning process for CMRs right now?
Kind of build off of each riding activity that we do, because at the end of each one of these activities, we'll circle up and just talk about how how it felt, what went on, what was some of like the roses, the petals and the thorns. But then in addition to that, we have weekly meetings every Tuesday where we go over like what the route is going to be. We have ride guests of honor who join our rides, and we like uplifting community champions that way. What's going to go, selecting who that person is going to be and adding them to a flyer and getting that placed out into our newsletter. And we've been sharpening up on that as we've gone, and we host Thank You Thursdays, where we thank people that came out on the ride. Thank the places that we went to, significant things that happened during the ride. Do weekly ride march training with our youth to help keep our community of cyclists protected as we make our way to our destinations. And we check in with the participants, how many miles we collectively travel, and we do it every week. Every Sunday for us is Self-Care Sunday. And we also have things like Fix It Fridays and our third Thursday night rides.
Thank you so much. I love that the acronym. Thank You Thursday, Fix It Friday. So many things I think we'll hear that we can borrow across. Appreciate that, Naj. We're going to go over to Sandra and ask for your perspective on this one. Sandra, in your process, who all is involved in the planning process, and why are those folks essential in the planning?
Names of colleagues and friends come to mind, but they're Tino Parker, they're folks that know the streets, that walk the streets, that ride the streets, that know the neighborhoods and can gauge the level of difficulty depending on the crowd that we are trying to bring out. They know the lighting depending on the time of the day and the time of the year that this happens, pothole situations, construction season, street closures, and also whoever approaches us curious about how to organize a ride, we welcome them and guide them and make them part of the process. Also, we have tech savvy people that help us with creating images for marketing purposes, and then we all help spread the word. I think we have we're beginning to codify what we're doing so that it's more outlined on who's doing what, and we overlap in a lot of things, but it's okay. Our rights are very community based, and it's a pretty grassroots approach. So we all share the responsibilities, but it's the main core of organizers, the ride or dies. Yeah.
Awesome. Everybody's got to have the ride or dies to make it happen, for sure. And one of the big things that we've talked about is the community healing that comes with these CMRs. And we really want to understand, how do you connect the stops, the narrators, and the stories that you want to tell through CMRs? Refa, we're going to direct this one to you.
Oakland is a very historic city in terms of culture and politics, and definitely its history of activism. And so with that being said, we try to incorporate a lot of the determination history of African people into our ride stops. In the neighborhood I live in, West Oakland, there's two things that are significant. And that is that we also had a headquarters here for the Marcus Garvey's UNIA. So that was a stop along our ride where we had an opportunity to talk to people who still work in this space and talk a little bit about the history of the location and its impact on the neighborhood, and how it helped set the the groundwork for organizations like the Black Panther Party. And so that is another set of locations that we stop along our route to talk about the service programs of the Black Panther Party and how impactful they were on the neighborhood. But we also, try to create support for local businesses. Marcus Bookstore is one of the oldest Black bookstores in the nation. And so what we'll try to do is make that a stop along our ride to get people familiar with such institutions in our community if they're not, and help bring some business there. So it's twofold. One, the business is getting the support of the writers, and two, the writers are getting the benefit of being able to use these community resources, as well as the activism happening in the neighborhood. So there have been opportunities where the community is calling out for support and they need people to show up in numbers to speak to a particular issue. And we will organize our riders to get together to go to those rallies and support. And one thing that I try to incorporate in our rides is to make sure we get into the residential areas where our people are. I believe it's very important for the community to see us riding together in unity and harmony and defiant Black self-determination. And when I say defiant, against the status quo that is always working hard to break that up. And in the original days of our rides, we didn't do too much riding through residential neighborhoods. We went to a lot of places that were very bike centric or cycling centric in terms of paths and other sites that seemed like they were really nice along the coast. And we realized that, it is important for us to ride where our people are. And so sometimes we'll do our ride straight through the middle of a housing project, and you'll hear the community cheering us on, and even better, people will get on their bikes and join us and ask about where we're riding and try to get involved with us for the next ride. So determining a stop has a lot to do with African self-determination and our health and wellness.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And this question obviously builds from some of those answers. So it's a great segue. And it's to Naj. Naj, how do you choose partners and sustain those positive relationships with them?
Over time. And, we partner with organizations hyper-locally, in Richmond, locally, in the Bay Area, as well as regionally, within groups like the Climate Justice Alliance. So like regionally, where the Rich City Rides is currently the convener for the Western region of the Climate Justice Alliance. We also have heavy participation in CJA's Black Caucus. Locally, within the Bay Area, we've, I myself am a longtime member of Red, Bike, and Green. I've been rolling with them since before Rich City Rides. So I pulled influences from my familial relationship with the folks from RBG. The Scraper Bike team, they I always give them props with inspiring me to start Rich City Rides. There's a whole story on how Baby Champ and RV rode past the house. And here in Richmond, all those interactions kind of played a part in the work that I do in Richmond. So we partner hyper locally with groups like the Richmond Our Power Coalition, which is a coalition of groups that work on different different avenues of social justice, environmental justice, housing rights, water rights. It's kind of like the five fingers, with each one having a particular thing that they focus in on, and we come together. We do things like park activations, and park cleanups. So we sustain our partners. We choose our partners based on who comes out and is consistently joining our rides or coming to help with the park cleanup or organizing events like Earth Day or the Martin Luther King National Day of Service. And it's just really becomes deepened by us working together. Our members get to know their members. There's a lot of cross membership. It's just a lot of coalition building. And we honor those relationships by, if moving forward, for instance, is an organization here in Richmond, if they do monthly hikes. So we round up our folks and we go to the monthly hikes. We don't lead those, but we support them. And the same thing happens when we do a ride or a bicycle repair workshop or so on and so forth. You know, there's Urban Tilth that we partner with to do our annual Winter Night Light Solstice ride. And we ended at the farm with the big celebration with like karaoke and fire spinning and fire pits as we usher in the longest night of the year. So yeah, I think it's just consistency. That's how we do it.
Awesome.
I'm thinking field trip, Lonnie. Chicago. Gotta go.
I'm trying to go out to Chicago. You're more than welcome to come out to Richmond, see what the riding scene is like here.
Awesome. Count us in. So we've heard about partnerships, we've heard about connecting stops, we've heard about who all is involved in the planning process. So Jalonda, we want to hear from you. What does a typical day of execution actually look like for these events?
Yeah, so for us, just ensuring that first there's some predictability to our rides and events. So we have events once a month, every month. And we are intentional about ensuring that our rides have a theme. Most times a theme that is political or a theme that is related to some sort of current event. And just being sure that it's, centered in Blackness, justice, healing in some way. But we are self-described as a radical cycling organization. So what that means is sometimes the themes and the titles of our events are a reflection of that. So just having a theme and like a really a title that's a reflection of our mission and why we exist. And then ensuring that we do a practice ride. So we do a practice ride typically before the actual day of the event, but then we'll also do a practice ride the day of. We're a really small organization, so it's really just me, the Vice President, Shayna Broughton, shout out to Shayna, and the Secretary of the Board, Chantel Douglas. So it's the three of us, and we get together and we practice for the rides. And that's really, really important because we want to be sure, especially as a Black-led organization, that we're not doing anything to reinforce whatever, really messed up ideologies that people have of like women leading their own rides and taking up space in the, cycling, transportation, mobility space. So that added pressure, I guess, is there, but we don't lead with that. We're just doing our due diligence and ensuring that we're making, ensuring that folks are safe when they come to our rides. So we do that. And then we have to make sure our outreach is on point. So prior to the actual event, just making sure we check all the boxes, making sure that we printed flyers, making sure that our social media presence was on point. And, you know, it's only 3 of us, so we do the best we can. And then we always have to set aside money, which is always a thing for us. So just making sure that we have enough money, since we are having events every month, for things like stage. Stage is really, really important for our events, because oftentimes, you know, some of the women and folks are coming carrying a lot, and their goal of coming is to heal. Like, that's what our mission is about, and we don't want to disappoint. So, you know, making sure folks' energy is on point, having our incense, having our music, really having like a cool playlist. So with our music, we partner with like local artists, local music platforms to help us craft our playlist to make sure we're lifting up local artists. So that's another way that we connect with our community, which is really cool. And then buying water and food and stuff like that. You want to make sure that you're, we like to call it body fuel, right? Like we're encouraging folks to get on their bikes, to commute to places, essential places, and, you know, nutrition and food and good food, healthy food is a really important part of that. And then getting to the event on time. So CP time, I don't know, but I don't want to get into that discussion, but like being on time is really, really important. And I think that's something that me and my team go back and forth about, is like, do we leave folks when they're late? Do we stay and wait? So that's always a thing, is being on time for the event. And then let me see, ensuring that each event we are lifting up a Black business or a business of color. So we'll typically start at a local business that's Black owned, or, you know, owned by a person of color, and connect with them, buy things. We'll have them tell a little bit, you know, we'll have them tell us a little bit about their business and what they do. And so that's another way that we build communities, is because a lot of times we'll find is that folks don't even, our community may not even know about the business that we're collaborating with. So it gives this business an opportunity to have exposure in ways that they otherwise wouldn't. And then, you know, we have our welcome at the start of the event. We talk about the rules of the road, which is important. And then we get on our bikes and we, you know, take up space unapologetically, in all areas of Buffalo. And Buffalo is a really segregated city. So we make it our business to show up in all areas, because a huge part of why we exist is for visibility. Oftentimes, you know, as Black women, we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard. And so to take up space in that way on the streets is like super dope. It's healing, it's radical, and it's almost like, you know, F you to whoever doesn't want to see us out there. So yeah, that's like a typical day for us executing an event.
Awesome. Refa 1, what about you? What's a typical execution day like?
Typical execution day. So we have one coming up tomorrow. So typical execution day is, you know, for myself, I wake up excited because the cycle to me reminds me just of revolution, turn and change, and the opportunity to organize self-determined Black people in a safe space is exciting. And so we get our crew together, we organize, you know, we put our plan together, our route is planned, you know, very similar in respective to how we organize here at Red Bike and Green. We try to plan places along the route to turn our people on to culture. And so this time we're going to be rolling up on a West African brother from Nigeria that's doing a fashion show in Old Oakland. So we'll be making a stop there. And we'll also be going to where a lot of Black roller skaters skate down near the pier. So other types of mobility. But we have our ride marshals. We want to make sure our people are safe. It's very important that people feel comfortable. And we want to make sure that we keep a pace that is, comfortable for everyone. We're there to have a good time, to feel safe, have some good vibes. This is not really a competitive type of ride, although we do have rides where the pace is a little faster. When we're a little more organized, we add another ride on for those that like to go fast. We go over our ground rules in the beginning. Oakland has a lot of potholes in the street, and we want to make sure that people don't meet the concrete in a way that they don't plan to. And so safety is important. We want to make sure that we're hydrated. Sometimes we're able to organize in such a way we're able to bring some refreshments or stop someplace and get replenished. So generally speaking, I mean, that's a typical ride. When we stop at, we make stops along the way, and these are opportunities for us to do announcements about different community programs and activism, as well as an opportunity for us to network and talk between each other, or even discuss matters and concerns that are close to our hearts, whether it be something addressing the police terrorism, or where it's just talking about amazing community institutions like Black Girls Greenhouse that is selling plant life to our brothers and sisters and helping keep our oxygen right in the households. And so it's a range. But for the most part, a typical day is us dealing with safe space, health, and love.
Awesome. And Najari, can you tell us about your execution day as well?
For me, I got to get the speaker ready. We got to get the speaker and the trailer ready. And like music is such a strong part of what we do. We activate neighborhoods when we traverse the hood. It's so I got a bike that I have a speaker on that I have music that I play, and then it's also one of our longtime staff, Tay, he comes out and he has his own assortment of music as well. So we have like music in the back. I'm usually up in the front. There's things that have kind of developed over time due to the fabulous input and creativity of Najari Sion, who's really a youth that I have been working with since he was like 19. And he's added things like the stretching exercises that we do in the beginning, the group photo, and in Richmond we say yee whenever we gather for the photos. So that's been it's become a tradition. These things are traditions that we do at every single ride. We have like dozens of routes, but we'll call an audible if we need to, because we set the pace. The least able or the eldest or the youngest among us sets the pace for the ride. So if we need to change up the route, then we do. And we know the areas around here so well that we can choose several different audibles or different routes that we can take to get to wherever we're going. And it's always a fun time. It's really great to see the youth out there with the sign-in sheets and telling people about other activities that are happening. It's the connection to this park that we helped build. It was a vacant lot before we built this thing out, and the bike hub that wasn't there like 5 years ago, but it's there now. It's really refreshing for me to see it grow with the community the way it has. And at the end, we start at the bike hub, we end at the bike hub. There's lots of stops in between. It's a celebration at the end. You know, it's the celebration circles that we do, which is also a custom from Red Bike and Green with the circles, and the Scraper Bike team with the circles. So yeah, that's what a typical day of biking beauty, of bicycle beauty looks like for us here in the hood of Richmond. Yay!
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 I think Jalonda would like to add something to that.
Yeah, I actually forgot. Najari reminded me of our healing. So we do healing circles at the end of every ride, where we connect with each other. We pass around the stage. We get to know each other, and yeah, and that's a really, really actually huge important part of like the rides. So yeah, those are. I'm happy to see that there's like other folks doing those types of circles.
Thanks for that ad. I have been looking at Sandra's face, just echoing. It's just like these points are resonating with you, I think, so much. And now it's your turn, and I'm sure you'll add on whatever you need to. But this is more about, given all of this, can you share a little about your experience with some common hiccups? Let's call them hiccups, real polite, in this planning of the CMRs in your experience.
Thank you, Cecily. And yes, before I answer your question about hiccups, I've been led by instinct about, I did not know, or I wasn't aware how healing it was to ride in community until I came to Elgin, even though I've been doing it before. And everything, like the music is a big aspect that I've been pushing, like, let's get a big ass speaker. Or the food, the sage, before and after. Yes, all of these things. Thank you so much for sharing and for this space. So hiccups, where I'm at or where we're at in community here in Elgin about hiccups. I think counting on someone or something to go a certain way, or planning something and then things go south, or commitment it's not there, or might change. We have a pretty good and eclectic group of folks that are able to be adaptable and like change things around and make things work. But that's a hiccup when things don't go as expected or as you planned. And I think this is directly tied to having funding and resources. There's never enough funding and resources. So that's a little bit of an insight into the hiccup and the lack of hands of the organizing the rides. We can always go bigger. We can always go bigger. And also something that came to mind when as I was listening to other panelists, is that in the beginning, we were joined by police force in uniforms and lethal weapons. And, I'm looking around, seeing if anyone else is uncomfortable or triggered by this, because I got triggered, and nobody was saying anything. They were like, they're here for safety. Like, we keep each other safe. And I think this is the premise of the community rights, that we're actively going against the status quo, saying we keep each other safe, we trust each other, we are neighbors, and we are here to do to show everyone that it's okay. We can cross when we're not supposed to, because we own the streets, even if it's just during the ride. But like, these are our streets. And I think that's part of a hiccup of like, who is included in the planning process, and do we understand? Do we have the same values? Do we have the same understanding of what we are doing, which is celebrating community, being mindful of empowering community for disinvested folks, for people of color, and keeping in mind that this is for social justice purposes, for equity, for healing, Black Lives Matter. And if we have the basic premise, then we can build. So yeah, these are, I think, common hiccups and the most basic ones in my experience in working with Elgin community bikes. Yeah, if anyone else has anything to add, I'd be glad to listen.
I love what you said about it's our streets, and police terrorism. It's our parks, and we with our people. You know, I just want to circle all of that in there. So the very fact that we're able to ride, that we do ride, is defiant. And it's just levels to that. You know, I got into it with the police during a ride that I did with Red Bike and Green, contingent from Rich City Rides, and it was the community that protected me, not the police. It was the police that harassed me, that threatened me, and it was the community that supported me through that whole ordeal. So yeah, there's healing in social activity, there's protection in social activity, there's cohesion in social activity. And in a world that wants to keep us so distracted, it's important that we maintain those connections to one another.
Thank you for pitching in, Naj. Yes, and so I approached the cop. Actually wanted to contact me, and I talked to him briefly by messaging, and I said, "You're welcome to come without any of that. You're welcome to participate as a civilian," but they didn't show up again because they felt that they were there for a reason, and that was to represent the police institution, and that was not what we're about. But yeah, it's lovely. It's a lovely community organizing way to bring everyone together and show that it's possible. But it is a path that we need to walk. I believe first as an individual, thinking and reflecting on that and what it means, and then you spread it around, and it's contagious.
Refa, one, it looks like you've been wanting to chime in on this conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to some of what Sandra was saying, and as well as what Jalonda had mentioned earlier about taking up space. When Najari got stopped by Oakland PD, he was harassed in a designated cycling lane. And the reason I'm putting some focus on that is because oftentimes one of the hiccups that we interface with here is that when cycling infrastructure is being created, it's usually being created by non-Black folks, usually white people, and it's usually created in the interest of white cyclists and for the white cycling community, although it will come under the guise that it is for everyone. But the reality is that if we are not at the table in planning such infrastructures, then who are they to benefit? And this was a classic example of how that doesn't work. And so he got stopped for riding while Black in a designated cycling zone. Now, this is supposed to be the safest area you can be as a cyclist, but we have to ask the question, safety for whom? And so being a part of the political infrastructure of these cycling areas is very important. And oftentimes we're not at the table, or we have to fight to get at the table. And when we're there, it seems like we have to explain the obvious. And as much as people would like to broad brush the California, the Bay Area as being very liberal, it is extremely racist. I mean, we live in a white settler colony, make no doubt about that. And so using our community-based organizations like Red Bike and Green, Rich City Rides, and some of the organizations that that are here today is a prime opportunity for us to organize, to make change in these areas. Because whatever cycling infrastructures that are coming through our community should serve our needs. And they should, and if they're right in our demographic and neighborhood, they should serve our needs primarily.
And just to quickly kind of add to that, Refa, one, in keeping all these things in mind, how do you go about evaluating some of the CMRs in that process based on all of these different factors?
That's a loaded question after that. You know, one of the basic ones, I would say joy. I mean, oftentimes that can just be dismissed. But when I see the joy on the faces of the brothers and sisters, and we've been riding in harmony all day and organizing and feeling that we've been in a safe space, and intimate, safe space for Black people is not something that we take for granted. Too often our culture is jumped on by everybody and folks love everything about us but us. But being in a place where we can heal and be ourselves and take up space, if we feel that we've done that, I know that's successful. If we've had an opportunity to expose our brothers and sisters to culture and resources and elements and institutions in our community that they didn't know about, and those communities that don't know about us being able to connect with us, that is also success. And most definitely our safety. We want to make sure everyone feels safe, not just physically on their bikes, but also spiritually, emotionally. It's supposed to be a safe space where we can come together. And so I take into account all of these things when we're riding to assess how successful it was. And of course, there's many other things, but those are some of the main things that stick out.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Jalonda was hoping to speak to that as well, and we'll put another question to you as well. So in terms of feedback on that, as well as challenges or insights with marketing within, I know you mentioned such a small core of individuals at your org, but within this community, how do you deal with challenges around marketing hyper locally or citywide?
Yeah, I will definitely answer that question. But first, I do want to add on to the infrastructure aspect, because in Buffalo, there are only white organizations sucking up all of the public dollars to do infrastructure in communities that they're not from. And it really, really angers me. And essentially what they do is then they'll hide behind essentially Black faces. I say Black faces because that's essentially what they see them as. They don't necessarily see them as people. They see them as, you know, using them essentially to make it okay to come in these communities. And I want to say colonize, but essentially design and place make in communities they're not from. And I think that that is such an injustice. And it needs to stop happening. And I really do think that it is time for Black urban planners and organizations to manage these public dollars to reinvest in designer communities. We don't have to wait on white-led organizations to design and placemake and to restore and rebuild our communities. And that's honestly what's happening in the city of Buffalo, which is a larger reflection of like the segregation and the racism that exists in Western New York. So I did want to point that out, and that's something that we're struggling with constantly. It's like, give us dollars, trust us with money, we can design and rebuild our communities. So I first want to say that, because that's something we're actively dealing with. And then as far as marketing our events, so we are unapologetically a Black women-led organization and so when we say women, we also mean cisgender and trans. And also gender non-binary folks. And so what that means is that in order to create, you know, a safe space, we are intentional about saying, hey, only these folks, you know, who are Black, brown, and indigenous and, you know, of these identities can come to our events. And what was I gonna say? And sometimes we receive pushback. And this is like the misogynoir. I want to use that term because when when a discussion comes out about like, you know, how are Black women the most oppressed, you know, within our society? And yes, I'm taking it to this conversation because we'll receive pushback not only from white folks, like, why can I come? But we'll also sometimes receive pushback from Black men. I love Black men. I love Black men. This is not to shade Black men or anything, but sometimes we'll receive pushback from Black men, which, you know, as a Black women-led organization, we need that support. And sometimes we don't feel supported in that way in our community. And a good example of that is like, we've been told that we can't share our events on certain pages and groups because of the space that we're trying to create. And that's a challenge, but you know, we persevere because we're super resilient. And then we still make it our business and our intention to be like, hey, you know, Black men, you know, how can we connect and get on the same page so that way we can support each other? So we'll still make that we'll still be intentional about that because sometimes there is that lack of knowledge. And, you know, sometimes we are okay with educating folks in that way. You know, and what's the other thing? Because I do think, let me see, what's the other thing, challenge? So the other challenge, I feel like I'm losing my train of thought. It's just like the capacity. Like, you know, we don't have like a ton of capacity. Like I said, it's just a really small team. So it's getting our events out in enough time for people to know about our events. And also changing the minds of folks. So we're all season cyclists. So we ride in the winter, fall, spring, you know, we ride sometimes when it's raining, and really trying to change the minds of people to challenge themselves to ride in conditions that aren't always sunny and warm. And as bike commuters, that's an essential part of being a bike commuter a commuter is being comfortable to ride in all seasons. Because our goal is to transition folks from not only riding their cars, but also using their bikes to get to essential places, So let me see. Yeah, I think that we face a lot of challenges overall. From our name, we've been ridiculed for our name by some of the elders in our community. Let me see, but there is, on a positive side, there is also a lot of like acceptance and understanding from our community and welcoming from our community as well. So I do want to balance it out with that. And I will say, yeah, money is always an issue for any Black-led, you know, organization. Like we are strapped for cash. And, you know, like I said, we are oftentimes sitting by while we're watching millions of dollars going to these white-led organizations to, I'm going to repeat it again, to rebuild and redesign and essentially colonize communities that they're not from. And it's very angering, it's disturbing. And one of our goals is to stop that and disrupt that and figure out new ways to make decisions so that the money could get into the hands of the Black folks that need it the most to, you know, design the futures that we want to see for our people. So I will leave it there. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your answer. Yes, Lonnie, let's do it.
And Jalonda, just so you know, you're getting a lot of love and support in the chat as well. People are saying, thank you for calling it out, and it's appreciated for creating that space, intentional space. So we're getting to the end of our webinar. So we do want to take some audience questions. We have one from Christopher and Najari. I think this one's a good one for you to answer. He says he'd like to know about tools for co-creating safe route planning that focus on people of color and people of different abilities.
Test the routes out, have alternative routes. Try to focus on, you know, neighborhood streets, so there's less traffic congestion. We celebrate, our organization in particular, we celebrate parks. You know, it makes a great way to activate that space. Be ready to, you know, be able to shift gears if you have some folks that are less able or not as seasoned cyclists. So, and like we advertise Self-Care Sunday as being very kid friendly, you know, very family friendly. And we tell people that we don't want to discourage anybody by saying that it's like an 8 to 12 mile bike ride. We definitely let them know that we're going to start at a certain time. We'll be back by a certain time. And that makes it so that people they're less focused on how long we're riding, because there's the joy that happens while they're riding, where they don't even think about how many miles they've been to. They're thinking about, you know, the people that they met, the places that they, you know, just the whole process of traversing through the street with this music playing. It sometimes will have bubbles flying in the air. We're too interested in celebrating. So there's also, when things do happen, like if somebody catches a flat, or, you know, if the kid with the training wheels is having a hard time keeping up, the whole ride circles around the least able among us to support them in being able to finish the ride. You know, I'm thankful to, you know, of course, there's need for the resources to be able to pack some additional tubes. There's the time involved in practicing multiple different routes. There's yeah, shit. And we, you know, we learn to prepare more each time. Like keeping the first aid kit with us, carrying some water along with us on the ride. So we have like secure support vehicles, like the e-bike trike that my partner Tay rides, where we keep all the tools, some extra snacks, some water, things that people might have forgot or not thought about, phone chargers, all of these things in his bike because it's heavy duty like that. But you know, we try to provide things so that the participants who are joining the ride, they only have to worry about enjoying themselves and rolling with us. That's important to us.
Thank you so much. So wonderful to hear these details, this collective wisdom coming through. I'm personally planning with Equiticity members a series, and it's just so helpful, all these details. Thank you, everybody. So we are pretty much moving towards the end, and I think we've exhausted our questions. So now we're gonna go ahead and hear from you guys one more time as panelists, and we want you to plug up, let us know what's going on happening in your organization, upcoming events, anything going on. Throw the social media in the chat, throw websites, anything you want in the chat. We'll go one at a time. We'll hear still from you, Naj, about what's coming up. Plug.
Oh shoot, we have Self-Care Sunday every Sunday. I want to mention an event, but it's red, bike, and green. But I'm so excited to go because that's just how me and my brother Refa get down. So I'm bringing the music there tomorrow because it's the opening ride for red, bike, and green. I'm excited about it. I've got members who are excited about it. They just and also there's a group out here. They just opened up a Bay Area chapter of Black Girls Do Bike. And we've got members who ride with them as well. So, Refa, I'm looking forward to the ride tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to the ride. The battery is charged for the speaker. We coming out there to shake things up with you.
Right on. Jalonda, can we move to Jalonda quickly, please? Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Black Girls Do Bike for sure. We definitely, they're in Rochester, we're in Buffalo. So there's no chapter here, which is one of the reasons actually why we started. And we do want to be more intentional about figuring out ways to coordinate with them, because our missions are similar but different. So in that being a Black woman isn't monolithic, and so similar names, but you know, definitely want to work with them a little bit more. So we have a festival coming up in August. It's gonna be called Black Urbanism and Mobility Festival. And we're trying to get like a bunch of folks from hopefully across the country to create like a Black Black centered festival around mobility and urban design. We're gonna have music and all sorts of things, so look out for that. You can follow us on Instagram, Color Girls Bike 2. And as always, we rides. Also have workshops as well. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
You can go to elgincommunitybikes.org and I'll put it in the chat, and you can connect on all platforms with us through there. Yeah.
Gracias. Thank you. Refa 1.
Yeah, it's our anniversary. So we're gonna be riding tomorrow at 12 noon at Lake Merrick in Oakland for anybody that's local out there. But we do our rides every first Fridays at 6 p.m., every second Saturday at 12 noon. So that's gonna be coming up. Our ride season, generally speaking, is from April through October. You can find us on Instagram at RBG Oakland. You can find us on Facebook at Red Bike and Green Oakland. I like to shout out that RBG has other chapters in other states and cities. And so shout out to Zara, who's the president, the national director of Red Bike and Green in Atlanta, and also to the Red Bike and Green chapter in Ohio. So we are spreading the love and the vibes.
All right, we love it. Cecily, you had a good idea about taking a road trip or a trip to come to all of these different events. We're gonna see y'all in your cities. We're gonna be in Richmond, we're gonna be in Oakland, we're gonna come to Buffalo. We definitely gonna be in Elgin. We wanna participate in all of these different CMRs because they sound so amazing. The vibes are right. If you wanna stick around, we're gonna play another video in a bit, but if you have to run, just make sure that you know that this is not the last of the webinar series. We're gonna do it again next week, next Friday, same time, same place. And we're gonna focus on the art of storytelling. It's gonna be a narrators panel. So make sure you join us, register, tell a friend, tell 3 friends, tell 30, and we'd love to see you again, same time, same place next Friday. Right now, if we could get into the video.
And now it's the Minstrel Show update with your correspondent, Jennifer Duval. Jalonda, you know me, Jennifer Duval. I'm over here showing a little brother right now, and it's real good. You see it? I'm listening to the Minstrel Show. You ain't heard it? It's the biggest color show on earth. I'm overweight, rappers fat to death. Obese when these beats catch wind of my breath. And yes, you ain't heard, you still rocking with the best. I just say y'all from taking the guess. Not jeans, my dear. You ain't worthy to breathe my air or stand tall in the pair I wear. Am I making it clear?
Nice teaser, nice ending. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate everybody being here and going a teeny bit over time. Thank you. Anybody who's still here, there's going to be a post-webinar survey. I believe it's in the chat already, or it is about to go. We want your feedback on making this better, make it meet the needs of the people. We say thank you to each and every one of you. Lonnie, any closing words?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been very insightful as always. Thank you all for sharing your gifts, for answering the call to serve the community in the ways that you do. You are appreciated.
Have a great CMR season to all orgs. Obai, we thank you as well for running this up, and Christian, wonderful work. And we will see you next Friday for the next panel, everyone.
Have a good weekend.